If someone told me that a single text message at 6 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday would destroy my entire life, I would have laughed in their face. But as I stood in the international arrivals terminal, soaking wet, watching two identical 3-year-olds crying next to a pile of luggage, I wasn't laughing anymore. My sister had just handed me a manila envelope, shoved her twins toward me, and sprinted back toward the departure gates. Before I could even process what was happening, my phone buzzed. It was a picture of her on a private beach in the Caribbean holding a margarita, accompanied by a 5-word text. "You handle them. Don't call." She didn't just go on a vacation. She erased herself from their lives, leaving me with her secrets, her debts, and a dangerous truth that was about to walk right through my front door. My name is Sarah. I'm 29 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, my life was completely, blissfully predictable. I work as a freelance graphic designer out of a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I'm the kind of person who color codes her calendar, pays her taxes 3 weeks early, and plans her grocery trips down to the exact aisle. I needed that structure because growing up, structure was the one thing my family lacked. That was mostly due to my twin sister, Chloe. Chloe was the storm to my quiet evening. She was glamorous, impulsive, wildly reckless, and possessed a terrifying ability to make everyone around her clean up her messes. For 29 years, she treated life like a game where only she knew the rules, leaving a wake of unpaid bills, broken hearts, and chaos behind her. But this time, the mess wasn't a wrecked car or a maxed-out credit card. It started with a call at 4:30 a.m. My phone vibrated violently against my nightstand. When I picked it up, Chloe's voice was hyperventilating, punctuated by the background noise of an airport terminal. "Sarah, you need to get to O'Hare right now," she panted, her tone sharp with an artificial urgency she used whenever she wanted something. "It's an emergency. I have nowhere else to turn." I barely had time to rub the sleep from my eyes before she hung up, leaving me to scramble into a pair of sweatpants, throw on a raincoat, and brave the torrential downpour. I thought her car had broken down. I thought she was stranded. I never imagined she was staging an exit strategy. When I spotted her near the international departure gates, she was wearing oversized designer sunglasses inside a dimly lit terminal. Standing beside her were 2 little figures in matching bright yellow raincoats, her 3-year-old twins, Leo and Maya. Before I could open my mouth to ask what was going on, Chloe moved with surgical speed. She grabbed both toddlers by their small hands and shoved them into my arms. She tossed a thick, heavy manila envelope into my tote bag, picked up her sleek carry-on suitcase, and took 3 steps backward. "Chloe, what is this?" I demanded, my voice echoing off the glass walls. "Where are you going?" She didn't answer. She just gave me a look that was entirely devoid of warmth, turned on her heel, and melted into the crowd heading toward international security. I tried to follow, but holding 2 sobbing toddlers and a massive duffel bag made it impossible. 10 seconds later, my phone buzzed with that infuriating picture on the beach. Driving back to my apartment was a blur of torrential rain and high-pitched crying. Leo and Maya didn't understand why their mother had vanished, and frankly, neither did I. By the time I dragged their luggage up the 3 flights of stairs to my home, my clothes were soaked through, and my mind was racing. I set the kids down in the living room with a box of apple juice and a cartoon on TV, trying to buy myself 10 minutes of sanity. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely open the heavy manila envelope Chloe had thrust into my bag. I expected to find short-term care instructions, maybe their pediatric information, a list of their favorite foods, or a quick note apologizing for the sudden disruption. What I pulled out instead made the air pull clean out of my lungs. Flashing at the top of the pile were full custody transfer forms, completely signed and notarized with my forged signature already on the witness lines. Beneath those were original birth certificates, social security cards, and a series of legal power of attorney documents transferring all medical and educational authority over Leo and Maya to me. At the very bottom was a single handwritten note on hotel stationery. "Sarah, I can't do this anymore. Being a mother is killing me, and staying here will destroy me. You've always been the responsible one. You love routine. Consider this your family now. Do not look for me. I'm not coming back. I sat on the edge of my coffee table, staring at the paper as the reality settled over me like a heavy weight. She hadn't just taken an extended vacation. She had executed a cold, calculated, total abandonment of her own children. She had planned this for months, using my reliable, quiet nature as her ultimate dump site. Anger, thick and burning, choked my throat, but looking over at the couch, where Leo was quietly wiping his sister's tears with his sleeve, the anger turned into a sickening realization. They had no idea they were never seeing their mother again. I spent the next 48 hours in a fog of emergency parenting, operating purely on survival instincts. I bought child locks, stocked up on chicken nuggets, and converted my home office into a makeshift nursery. But as the initial shock began to fade, practical questions began to demand answers. Chloe didn't have the kind of money required to fly to the Caribbean on a whim, let alone buy a luxury vacation package. Where had she gotten the cash? And why the extreme secrecy? On Thursday night, while the kids were finally asleep, I decided to do some digging. I pulled up Chloe's social media accounts, but they had all been deleted. I searched public property records and found out that the condo she had been renting downtown was vacated 2 weeks prior. The landlord had listed it as abandoned. Suspicious, I pulled out the heavy duffel bag Chloe had left with the kids' clothes. Tucked deep into the bottom lining of a side pocket, my fingers brushed against something hard and metallic. It was a cheap, prepaid burner phone. The battery was low, but as soon as I pressed the power button, the screen lit up with dozens of missed calls and unread text messages, all from the same unlisted number. The most recent text, sent just 3 hours earlier, read, "We know she left the kids with you. Paying her debts is your problem now." A cold wave of dread washed over me. Chloe hadn't just abandoned her children because she was tired of being a mother. She was running away from something far more dangerous. The answer to what that was came crashing down on my doorstep less than 24 hours later. It was nearly 9 p.m. on Friday. The rain had returned, beating a steady rhythm against my window panes. I was in the kitchen folding tiny laundry when a heavy, rhythmic knock rattled my front door. My heart dropped into my stomach. I looked through the peephole and saw a tall man standing in the hallway, wearing a dark suit and holding a thick leather briefcase. I opened the door only a crack, keeping the safety chain engaged. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my voice as flat as possible. "Sarah Hartman?" the man asked, his voice professional, hard, and entirely unbothered by the late hour. "I'm a private process server representing Apex Capital. I have urgent legal documents regarding your sister, Chloe Hartman, and her outstanding commercial obligations." He held up a thick packet of legal papers. "And since you are listed as the primary guarantor on her $250,000 business loan, you are being formally served." My hand froze on the edge of the door. "Guarantor? What are you talking about? I never signed anything for my sister," I yelled, pulling the door open further. The man pulled a document from the top of his stack and handed it to me. There, on the signature page of a massive, predatory loan document dated 8 months ago, was my name. The signature was a flawless forgery of my handwriting, complete with a stolen copy of my tax return attached as financial verification. Chloe had used my clean credit rating, my stable income, and my identity to secure $250,000, blown through it all, and left me holding the bill while she sipped drinks in a country without an extradition treaty. The process server didn't care about my shock. He handed me the papers, noted the time, turned, and walked down the hallway, leaving me standing in the doorway with my life in ruins. I stood in the quiet apartment, holding the papers that proved my own twin sister had systematically set me up to take the fall for her fraud. She had stolen my identity, ruined my financial future, and dumped her children on me like unwanted baggage, expecting me to collapse under the weight of it all. For about 10 minutes, I sat on the floor and cried. I cried for the life I had built, for the peace I had lost, and for the sheer cruelty of someone who shared my DNA. But then, as I looked toward the hallway and saw Leo peeking out from the bedroom door, clutching his stuffed bear, something inside me snapped. The sadness didn't disappear, but it was completely overtaken by a cold, sharp, unyielding rage. Chloe thought I was weak because I was quiet. She thought I was easy to manipulate because I was responsible. She thought I would sit back, pay her debts, raise her kids, and suffer in silence. She was wrong. First thing Monday morning, I didn't call the bank, and I didn't try to track down my sister on social media. I went straight to one of the top family law and financial fraud attorneys in the city, a woman named Victoria Vance. I laid out every single piece of evidence on her desk. The burner phone texts, the forged loan documents, the notarized custody papers, the airport security footage timestamp, and the text message from the Caribbean. Victoria took one look at the paper trail and smiled a thin, dangerous smile. "Your sister thinks she was clever," Victoria said, leaning back in her chair. In reality, she just documented her own criminal paper trail. "We aren't going to play defense, Sarah. We are going to go on the offensive." We immediately launched a two-pronged strategy. First, Victoria filed an emergency motion for sole temporary legal custody and guardianship of Leo and Maya, establishing that Chloe had legally abandoned the minors. This protected the children, allowing me to enroll them in healthcare and preschool without needing Chloe's signature for anything. Second, we took the forged loan documents directly to the state police's financial crimes unit, along with the affidavit proving I was working at my home office miles away at the exact time the loan was notarized. Within 48 hours, an active felony warrant for identity theft and wire fraud was issued for Chloe Hartman. While the police handled the criminal charges, I hired a private forensic investigator to trace the money. It didn't take long to find where the $250,000 had gone. Chloe hadn't spent it all on clothes and drinks. She had transferred $180,000 of it into an offshore bank account registered under a shell company in the Cayman Islands. She thought that money was safe, untouchable, and waiting for her to live out her new life. But she had made one fatal mistake. She had used a joint family trust account, an account our late grandmother had set up for both of us years ago that was still technically active, to bridge the transfer. Because my name was still attached to that origin account, my legal team was able to obtain a court-ordered emergency freeze on the entire offshore sum. 3 weeks after she vanished, Chloe's paradise suddenly ran out of cash. Her credit cards were declined at her luxury resort, her offshore account was frozen by international banking compliance, and the resort threatened to involve local authorities if she didn't settle her 5-figure hotel bill immediately. My phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. It was an international number. I answered it, completely calm, setting the phone on speaker while Victoria, who was sitting across from me in my living room, started the recorder. "Sarah, what the hell did you do?" Chloe screamed into the line, her voice hysterical, stripped of all her usual glamour. "My cards aren't working. The hotel is threatening to lock me out. Did you touch my accounts?" "Hello, Chloe," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "I see you're enjoying the Caribbean. Don't play games with me," she shrieked. "Unfreeze my money right now. I know you had something to do with this. You have no right to touch my finances." "You mean the money you stole using my name?" I replied smoothly. "The money from the fraudulent loan that has a felony arrest warrant waiting for you the second you step foot on American soil?" Silence fell over the line. For the first time in her life, Chloe realized she wasn't in control. "Sarah, please." Her voice instantly shifted into a pathetic, whimpering tone. I was desperate. People were after me for money. I had to get away. "We're sisters, Sarah. You can't do this to me. Think about the family." "I am thinking about family," I said fiercely. "I'm thinking about Leo and Maya, the 2 innocent children you dumped at an airport like garbage so you could live in luxury off stolen cash. You didn't just abandon them, Chloe. You discarded them. But guess what? They are safe now. They are cared for, and they are never, ever going to be subjected to your toxic chaos again." "They're my children," she yelled, trying one last time to summon her old dominance. "You can't keep them from me. They were your children," I corrected her, "until you handed me an envelope containing formal abandonment papers and fled the country. The court has already granted me temporary sole legal guardianship. And if you ever try to contact them again, I will personally ensure the authorities know your exact location right now." I took a deep breath, feeling a profound sense of relief wash over me. "Don't call this number again, Chloe. You wanted a new life. Enjoy paying for it. I hung up the phone before she could say another word and permanently blocked the number. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Unable to pay her resort bills or access her frozen funds, Chloe was forced to contact the American Embassy for assistance, which alerted the local authorities to her active extradition warrant. She was detained, returned to the States, and immediately taken into custody. Facing overwhelming physical evidence of financial fraud, identity theft, and child abandonment, her legal team realized they had no defense. To avoid a lengthy prison sentence, Chloe agreed to a plea deal. She formally surrendered all parental rights to Leo and Maya, agreed to full restitution payments managed through her asset liquidation, and accepted 5 years of court-monitored probation. 6 months after that chaotic rainy morning at O'Hare, I stood in a quiet, sunlit courtroom downtown. The judge looked down at me from the bench, smiled warmly, and signed the final decree. Leo and Maya were officially mine. Not as a burden, not as a temporary favor to a broken sister, but as my children, legally and forever. Leaving the courthouse holding their small hands, the world looked completely different. My quiet, perfectly ordered life was gone, replaced by toy trains scattered across the living room floor, bedtime stories, finger painting, and a loud, beautiful, chaotic kind of love I had never known I was capable of giving. Chloe thought she was dumping her problems on me, but in reality, she handed me the greatest gift of my life. She thought she was escaping, but all she did was trap herself in the consequences of her own choices, while I finally found my true home.